So Manchester United have been linked with Franco Mastantuono, and I did make an analysis video on him the other day, so I'll leave that linked in the description and in the eye above. But in that video I talked about how the release clause of £38 million for me is just too much of a risk for United to take at this point in time, mainly due to Mastantuano's age and not having played in Europe, as if United are spending that sort of money, we aren't really in the position where we can wait for a player to settle in, develop and get to the level where they are ready to start week in week out, let alone get to the elite level, which optimistically will at least take Mastantuano 1, maybe 2 seasons to adapt to European football, let alone the Premier League, and realistically considering he only turns 18 at the start of next season, it may take till he's 21 or 22 after a loan or two before he reaches that level. But let's say United wanted a player who was stylistically similar to Mastantuano, who could come in and we could expect them to have an immediate impact. Who would be a better option? Well, there are 2 players I would suggest. The first is Cherki, who I have made a couple of analysis videos about. I'm sure you already know about him, so I'm not going to go into him too much in this video, but I'll leave the videos I did do linked in the eye above and description below. But another potential option who this video is going to be focused on is Villarreal's Alex Baena. Baena is 23, 24 in July, so he's pretty much the perfect age profile for United at the moment. He has a contract until 2028, with Villarreal reportedly demanding £38 million, which would be the same price as Mastantuano, so this is a pretty good comparison. But before I break that down, if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including Manchester United jerseys, going all the way back to the early 90s. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you will get a 10% discount for a limited time, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the eye above. So stylistically, I'd probably describe Alex Baena as a mix between Isco and Santi Cazorla. He has that kind of stocky, low centre of gravity that Isco has, with the technical abilities of both players, but I actually think his acceleration with the ball might be a bit quicker than what Cazorla's was. Primarily he operates as a right footer from the left, essentially playing the role of a playmaker, drifting infield between the lines, though I don't see an issue with him starting from the right side either, and being given a similar sort of free role to the one that we see Bruno Fernandes given when he starts on the right of the front three, not sitting in that right-sided half space religiously, instead roaming across the pitch, looking to open up passing angles to receive the ball in behind the midfield line. And from this position, Alex Baena is not just one of the best creators in La Liga, but one of the best in Europe and I guess therefore the world, and the stats back this up and I'll come on to that in just a minute. Baena's passing ability is tremendous. He has that Bruno Fernandes type of quality when it comes to being able to see and then play passes that only elite level creators can, whether this is a curling through ball that bends around defenders to release an attacker in behind, perfectly timed, weighted and directed through balls to release a runner in behind the back line as well, or short slide rule passes around the box to set up a goal scoring or a goal creating opportunity. 10 sharp 1 and 2 touch passes to allow United to play through the centre of the pitch. And I would actually describe him as the player that Sancho was meant to be, because if you only watch a few highlights of Alex Baena, you can definitely see the resemblance between him and Sancho at Dortmund, in terms of being able to subtly link play with short passes and threading through balls, but Baena is far more complete than Sancho ever was, and this becomes apparent when you watch him in full games, particularly for Spain, where he has been given more of a deeper line playmaker role, where rather than solely sitting higher up the pitch between the opposition's midfield and defensive line, and his pass selection is very good, enabling his side to not just play through the centre, but also switch play when necessary to exploit space on the opposite flank, and I'm going to tactically analyse how this could massively benefit Amorim's system in multiple phases of play in just a minute, but let's first look at what the stats tell us about him. So for some reason FBref have categorised him as a midfielder rather than an attacking midfielder, which is why his goal scoring, chance creation, progressive passing, dribbling and carrying metrics look off the chart. But if we go and look at the ranking section of FBref, we can get a fairer idea of how Baena's output looks in comparison to other attacking midfielders throughout Europe. So you can see that out of every player in Europe's top 5 leagues, Alex Baena has the 5th highest total XG assisted, behind only Elise, Rafinha, Salah and Yamal, and for his expected assist he ranks top, ahead of Elise, Yamal and Cherki. In terms of his passes into the penalty area, he ranks 8th, once again slightly ahead of the likes of Cherki and Rafinha. Now if there is a concern with Baena, I guess it would be whether he can translate his output in La Liga to the Premier League with the increased pace and physicality. However, having watched Baena quite a bit, despite his diminutive stature, he is quite quick across the ground when he's got the ball at his feet, and his playmaking ability both higher up the pitch and in deeper areas really excites me. And so this brings us on to the question of how Alex Baena would fit into and improve Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 system. Well, I wouldn't say that Alex Baena has the physicality or the athleticism to play in a midfield double pivot most of the time. Maybe when United are chasing the game, but even then I think you'd rather have Bruno Fernandes in that deeper role. Now if we were to sign Cunha and Delap, Baena could start from the right side. However, as I said previously, in order to get the best out of him, I think Amorim would have to give him greater licence to roam compared with Cunha on the other side, and I think this could be effective during the build-up phase. See, currently when United are looking to build out of the defensive third, I often feel like the three central players around the edge of the box, the central centre-back and the midfield double pivot, are far too static with their movement, which makes it easy for the opposition's midfield to man-to-man press them, cutting off Onana and the two wider centre-backs passing options centrally, which is why we often see United forced out wide during this phase of play. However, if Amorim was to instruct the three central players to make horizontal and vertical movements, then this can work to stretch the opposition's midfield line, opening up spaces for Baena to drop into as a free man, where he can use these press resistance or 1 and 2 touch bounce passes to allow United to efficiently play around the pressure. And I do think he would be much better at receiving the ball in these deeper areas compared with the central centre-back Maguire or De Ligt, Ugarte or even Bruno Fernandes or Mainu, and so in this sense you could consider Baena as a part of the midfield three, rather than the front three. Also, if the opposition do look to continue their aggressive man-to-man press, then this is going to force their left-back to follow Baena high into the United defensive third, which is going to create more space in the middle third for Delap, Cunha or maybe a deeper runner like the wing-backs or midfield double pivot to exploit. Now in the middle third, I think you mainly want Baena floating across the pitch between the midfield and defensive lines, looking to drop into spaces and opening up passing lanes to receive the ball, turn, and then drive forward looking to create. However, if United are struggling to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch in the middle third into the final third, then this is where we can see Amorim use Baena in a more relationist way, dropping deep to get away from his presser, creating overloads in congested areas, where from, like Bruno Fernandes, Baena has the passing range, both in terms of threading incisive passes between the lines, or switching play with longer passes, or even finding runners with direct passes over the back line, to aid United significantly in terms of ball progression, alongside the close ball control to be able to dribble past players in these central areas, as well as exchanging short and sharp passes to play through the centre as well. In the final third, I think if you have Bruno Fernandes and Alex Baena roaming across the pitch in close proximity to each other, then this is going to allow for some effective, intricate short passing interplays between the two. And when Alex Baena drifts over into the wide areas, his crossing is very good from either side, and with players who are aerial threats inside of the box, I think this can be an effective and consistent method for United to create chances, particularly against deep and compact defensive blocks. Now comparing Baena to Mastantuano and Cherki, I would say that whilst you could make the argument that Mastantuano does have a higher potential than Baena, given his current ability at his age, as I do say often, potential isn't realised ability. And with Baena already producing what you could consider elite level output in one of Europe's top 5 leagues and being only 23 himself, it's definitely not a given that Mastantuano reaches a higher level than Baena over the next 5 to 7 years. Whereas certainly for next season and even the next 2 to 3, I think Baena would be the better player of the two for Manchester United. Now in regards to Cherki, I do think the Lyon man's potential is higher, and whilst I would say that Baena and Cherki are probably around the same level at the moment, I do think Cherki has the unpredictability as well as the ability to produce a piece of magic from absolutely nothing that sets him apart not just from Baena but from pretty much every other attacking midfielder in world football, barring the likes of Yamal, De Bruyne and maybe a few others as well. The concern with Cherki would be his attitude, but also what he does from a defensive point of view, as I think out of possession playing as either a wide midfielder in a 5-2-3 defensive shape, sitting narrow and cutting passing lanes into the half space, or as a part of a midfield 3 in a 5-3-2, I think Baena is going to be significantly better, and so whilst Cherki may have greater flair and trickery, from a defensive and pressing point of view, Baena would be the better option. Now to be honest, if it wasn't Cherki who United signed this summer, then I actually think Baena would be just as good a signing, if the budget was there, with the Villarreal man likely costing £15 to £18 million more. And so overall I rate Alex Baena extremely highly, and if United could get him this summer, I'd be incredibly happy with that transfer. So let me know what you think of Alex Baena in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a 10% discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below, and if you want to sign up to my Patreon to read my articles, or get access to the in-game Instagram group chat, I'll leave that linked on the end screen now as well.